Chris and I come in working first in World of Sport, and then we arrived in Los Angeles and Santa Monica, and we went up to Portland, and we split up. And how Chris and I got back uh, in a friendship to to do the ex-wife angle at the Sportatorium, which was amazing.
You mentioned World of Sport and obviously Chris Adams, gentleman Chris Adams. Did you like wrestling? Did you want to get in wrestling? Like when you first did that, was it just because you were dating him? Like what was the deal with getting into the actual wrestling business?
Really kind of a fluke, if I'm honest. Uh, I had a rather traumatic childhood. I touch on it very lightly in the first chapter. And a friend of mine, Marion, her father was massive of the World of Sport, the English World of Sport. I'm not sure if you would even remember because you might be too young, but in the 80s, it was mass. Maybe before that, it was massive in the UK, and that would be like the Big Daddy era, and they had the 2 falls, 2 submissions, or a knockout, or rounds. And I happened to be with my girlfriend, Marion, whose dad, I always heard it in the background. It was on the TV at his house. Although I wasn't really aware of anything to do with it. And he got unwell one day, and he gave me and my friend his tickets because he had like recurring tickets to the local auditorium where they had it. And I went with my friend, and that's where I met Chris, accidentally, really. But that's the beginning. If I hadn't gone that day by a pure accident, I probably would not have met Chris. But I did meet Chris, and basically, he gave me his phone number. Excuse me, no, he asked for my phone number, and we're going back to like when I was 19. So I'm 64, so it's a long, long time ago. And he actually asked me to meet up with him, but my mom, because back then we only had landlines, and my mom was like getting annoyed because he kept calling and calling and calling and
Yep.
calling. And eventually she told me, he's annoying me, you need to call him back. And I did. And he invited me to the Birmingham Motor Show. And I thought, oh, that sounds like fun, because I'd never been to anything like that before. And that was the start of my relationship with Chris. And we started the journey to the States together in when I was a kid, really, 19.
Did you think that you would like fall in love with the business? Did you want to be a part of the business, be the manager, valet, or were you like, I don't know if this is really for me, but he's kind of pushing you along and wanting you to be in it?
He was pushing it in England way before we ever came to the States. So he came up with a really great idea, because the English wrestling was done in rounds, or the British wrestling was done in rounds. Chris was very creative, and he always had ideas all the time, wrestling schools, and he said I should be his second. And that's kind of like in a boxing area where the second comes in between rounds to give water and a towel to. And actually, I did that, and it was all over the press, the tabloids. It was very, very popular.
So, as far as coming to the States, you wanted to come with him, or was that something where you wanted to go and, like what was the deal with you guys coming over together to the States?
Well, yes, we were now a couple, living together, and he met up with a guy called Yasu Fuji. Chris being a judo guy, and the Labelles who ran the, I think I'm going to get it right, the NWA out of Los Angeles. Because that judo connection, so they brought him in, and yes, we got on the flight together and lived in Santa Monica, and Chris and I loved it because we were from a smallish town in the Midlands of England, and here we were on this beautiful beach in Santa Monica, and we were like, wow. It was just like, this is crazy. It's just amazing. And we spent a lot of time on the beach. And we had a little place we stayed at called the Flamingo West Hotel. Funnily enough, my daughter lives out there now, and we did a little drive to try and find where that motel was, but it's been long gone now. But many memories came back. Just Santa Monica Pier and all the places Chris and I were at together. But I think back then he had a few gigs, like I think San Bernardino or here and there, but the money wasn't enough to make us able to really live really well. And we actually spent a couple of nights on the beach, sleeping on the beach. But we were like 19, 20 years old, and it was an experience. But when you're young, you kind of go with the flow.
Absolutely. So where do you go after California? Is that when you go to Portland, or like how do you kind of get from one place to the next? And like, is it you basically he's going to work one territory, he's going to go to maybe Portland, and then that's the way you guys are going to start making more money?
Yeah. Obviously, I was pregnant in Los Angeles with my first daughter, Jade, and Chris actually went to Japan. One of the first memories I have of Los Angeles was that Chris was working with Hulk Hogan in Japan, and we got invited to the same arena, the Olympic Auditorium, by Hulk Hogan, and we actually went to the filming of Rocky with him. And as you can imagine, a 19-year-old girl, because we had seen the Rocky movies in the UK, is here in Santa Monica from the UK, and suddenly on the film set of Rocky. And funny story is, Chris, we were sitting like a few rows back, as a guest of Hulk Hogan, and Chris goes, go ask Sylvester Stallone to take a photograph with you. And I was like, no, I'm not. It's embarrassing. And he was like, no, go, take the opportunity. And I went, no, you go. And then he kept pushing me to do that. And finally I gave in, and I walked up to Sylvester Stallone was facing the other way from me, and I kind of tapped him on the shoulder, and his bodyguard's arms were like this, come out, and I went, excuse me, may I have a photo? And he said yes, okay, and he came over to where we were, and Chris took an absolutely perfect photo of me and Sylvester Stallone, and I was so nervous that we only had those little Instamatic cameras back then that you had to take to the pharmacy to get the pictures back. And I'm only like 5 foot, like tall, so tiny. And I took the picture, and I remember the pictures coming back, and Chris goes, oh, let me see. And I remember mine was perfect, but the one I took of them, I'd accidentally only got it from the neck down. Chris was like, "Oh man," but I accidentally cut their heads off.
That's pretty
But
cool experience. You guys were able to do that and get out there and go to the Rocky 3. It's awesome.
you could imagine, because I'm this girl from a small town in the UK. I accidentally, if you'd like, meet Chris. We start a relationship. We move in together. Within a year, we're in the States, and within the first few months of being in the States, we're on the Rocky set. Because Chris said he had some of his very best matches with Terry. So, yeah, it was incredible when you think about it. You'd never dream it was possible that we would leave England and be on this beautiful beach and on the Rocky set. It was like something you'd never dream would be so real. You would find that like a dream. Pinch me, is that real?
Yeah, definitely. With Chris, I know you guys never married her, right? So is that because you guys were so young? Did you not want to get married? Did he not want to get married? How come that never happened?
Yeah, I've been asked that question a lot. Marriage never came up between either one of us. He never wanted to marry him. And I never thought about marriage. I was just too young to think about it. And um, he was 24, I was, 19. So, no, it really didn't come up. The question of marriage, it never once came up.
Now, recently, I know they announced Vice, the Dark Side of the Ring people, that he's going to have his own Dark Side of the Ring, and obviously, they're interviewing people of his past. Is that something like where you're a part of it? You didn't want to be a part of it. You do want to be a part of it. Is it painful talking about it? Because obviously, his demise was well, way, way,
No,
way too soon.
he's in question. Yes, it was difficult because when I wrote my book, it was kind of a closure, and in a way, thinking or bringing it up. And I did do a very long interview, although I'm apprehensive to say what was included in it because it's not been aired. But yeah, because I had to kind of relive everything. So it was slightly a difficult, but I think he does fit like a character for the dark side due to the latter part of his life. Yes.
So did you? Well, I guess they probably contact you, right? I mean, you have no idea if they're filming stuff, so they contact you and basically say, "Hey, we're doing this," and you said, "Yes, I'll do it," and you kind of had no problem doing it, I guess.
They did, yeah. They contacted me, and I remember Chris directing it, everything I did. And he told me to watch Joan Collins, who was on a show called Dynasty. And that will maybe before your time. But she played like a really villainous ex-wife. And Linda Evans played like a really good person. And I did watch the show, and that's where a lot of the feel for what Chris wanted. And I came in with Steve, this villainous ex-wife, and a lot of our interviews were amazing. And it was just Friday night, Saturday morning, which was local to me from where I lived, so it was easy for me to perform that. And I think it got feud of the year, or maybe the top 3 feud of the year. So it really worked out really well.
How did you and Steve get together? Is that because Chris trained him, or you knew Steve a little bit and then got in, or was it because of the angle?
Oh, totally the angle. I never went to the Sportatorium at all until I don't know what year. I'm going to say 89-ish is when Steve went through Chris's wrestling school. I'm guessing that. I didn't even know anything about that until Chris phoned me up and asked me to do the ex-wife angle. And like I say, a lot of people think Chris and I were married because of its name, the ex-wife angle. But we, you know, really did a great job. I think, Chris directed me, and I was able to perform the villain. And obviously Steve was a natural, so he did really. So I think the chemistry between all four of us, I sometimes look back and think it was extremely fun. And Tony and I were really good friends, so it worked. Yeah.
When you look at that, and they're saying the ex-wife angle, like, did you think like, this is like a little too personal, like as far as wrestling, or were you just like, if Chris thinks it's a good idea, let's just do it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd known Tony 5 years prior. She had been coming to Florida. I lived in the apartment building next to Gina. And we'd been long time friends, so I didn't think it was weird, but there were a few people that inside the industry that probably did. Jerry Jarrett would come to mind there, like, how does that work? But I think it was an exception to the rule that Tony and I just were incredibly good friends.
So even Jerry Jarrett, who obviously he's running, I guess, USWA and World Class at this point, even Jerry Jarrett was kind of questioning you guys, like, guys, this is maybe too real.
This is like his ex, and this is his wife, and yet Tony and I were like really cool together. We'd go shopping, we'd go eat dinner together, we'd sit together, we'd watch movies, and I suppose it is something most people probably wouldn't think, because it certainly didn't happen to me later on. But it did work, yeah. Chris, Tony, and I were really all good friends, yes.
That's pretty amazing, because when you like look at it from like a fan perspective, or even looking back, like, wow, that must hit so close to home. That's so personal. That's such a interesting angle, but it's like a little villainous in a certain way. But that's kind of so different that you guys actually got along and didn't mind.
No, we got along great. We really did. And um, I was really kind of shocked when some people inside the industry thought it was a shoot, because it wasn't at all. A matter of fact, after we did our performance, we'd go back and talk about it. And yeah, we were cool, totally cool.
So did you like?
Really,
Did
that.
Did you like the Sportatorium in general? Because everyone's always saying like such a legendary venue, but a lot of the wrestlers like, well, when you get there, it's not really kind of what you think. I mean, it's legendary, yes, but it's not like the nicest place they've ever been to.
Oh, I loved it. I thought it had a special kind of buzz to it, like a vibe. It just had a lot of regular fans, but it had an energy there that was great. I can't really put my finger on it, but I thought it was amazing place, really. I think a lot of stars or wrestlers went through this auditorium would probably say the same thing. I mean, obviously the Von Erichs were there. That was the main, the Von Erichs were like gods. They were probably as popular as the Dallas Cowboys at the time.